continue with paticca samuppada, dependent origination. Paticca samuppada is a Pali word, Pali language. Translated into English is dependent origination. It explains, paticca samuppada explains the chain of causation that leads from birth to death. From birth to death, it explains the chain of causation. Existence is an interrelated flux of transient events. Interrelated flux of transient events that occur in a series, say from babyhood to childhood to adulthood and then to old age. So it's a series. And before we explain on paticca samuppada, we should be able to remember all the keywords. So you follow after me and let's get the keywords in our mind every time, and then we can meditate on it. But you have to know the keywords first. So let's put the keywords together. You follow after me. Number 1 up to number 12. Avidya paccaya sankhara. Dependent on ignorance, volitional reaction arises. Sankhara paccaya vijnanam. Dependent on volitional reaction, consciousness arises. Vijnana paccaya nama rupam. Dependent on consciousness, the mind and body arises. Nama rupam paccaya salayatanam. Dependent on the mind and body, the 6 senses arise. Salayatanam paccaya paso. Dependent on the 6 senses, contact arises. Phassa paccaya vedana. Dependent on contact, feelings arise. Vedana paccaya tanha. Dependent on feelings, craving and aversion arise. Tanha paccaya upadanam. Dependent on craving and aversion, clinging arise. Upadanam paccaya bhavo. Dependent on clinging, the process of becoming arises. Bhava paccaya jati. Dependent on the process of becoming, birth arises. Jati paccaya jara. Dependent on the basis of birth, aging and death arise. Maranam sukha parideva. Dukkha damanas upayasa sambhavati. together with sorrow, lamentation, physical and mental suffering and tribulations, eva mintasa kevalasa, dukkha kandasa samudahoyo hoti. Thus arise this entire mass of sufferings. All right, you may put your palms down. Last time we explained number 1, 2, and 3. Avijja pacchaya sankhara. Pacchaya, that means dependent on or cause from. So the pacchaya always appear in there. That's the key word, pacchaya. Avijja is ignorance. Sankhara is volitional reaction. So 1, 2, and 3 refers to the past life, the past time. So depending on ignorance, volitional reaction arises. That means because of our ignorance, we create karma. And because of karma, we carry this karma to reincarnation, to life and death. So that's what we explained last time. Sankhara pacchaya vinanam. Dependent on volitional reactions, consciousness arises. Because of what we have done from speech, from actions, and from thought, they all go into the consciousness, which would register there, it won't go away. So it goes into the consciousness. In other words, all these karmic seeds, they store in the consciousness. 3. Vinana pacchaya nama rupam. Dependent on consciousnesses, the mind and body arises. All this karmic energy stored in our consciousness, which is called the alaya consciousness, and when the body dies out, the alaya consciousness, in the form of invisible energy, would carry this karma and reincarnate into the next life, into the next form. So dependent on volitional reaction, consciousness arises. Dependent on consciousness, the mind and body arises. When the alaya consciousness reincarnates, it gets into the mom's womb. When a person dies, all his seeds in the alaya consciousness would leave the body and enters into a bardo stage, B-A-R-D-O, in a bardo stage. A bardo stage, somebody may mistake it to be like ghosts. It's not ghosts, it's the bardo stage before reincarnation. The bardo stage is always in darkness, is roaming around in darkness before reincarnation, the bardo stage. The bardo stage would stay as long as 49 days. In other words, when a person passes away, he's in the bardo stage for 49 days. He's still around for 49 days in a bardo stage, in darkness, gloomy darkness, longing for light. For people who pass away and immediately reincarnate, they won't go into the bardo stage. For people who commit the most non-virtuous deeds, they may immediately go down to inferno, immediately go down to the animal realm, or immediately go down to the ghost realm. They may not pass through the bardo stage. And for those who have done virtuous deeds, many good deeds, creating many good energy, they may immediately go to heaven. They don't have to go down to the bardo stage. But being in heaven is not the ultimate place to go. They still have to reincarnate. People, sentient beings in heaven, after they enjoy all the happiness which they deserve because of the good deeds they have done, they still have to reincarnate. So, for the two extremes, most people stay in the bardo stage. Some may be 10 days, some may be 5 days, 11 days, 12 days, up to a maximum of 49 days usually. So 1, 2, and 3. The last one, Vijnana Paccaya Namarupa. Vijnana is consciousness, Paccaya dependent on Namarupa, dependent on consciousness. Because of this consciousness, then this consciousness during the bottle stage is the darkness, and when a man and a woman have a relationship, make love to each other, so to speak, it sparkles the light. The light of desire and love was sparkled. And the bottle stage being in darkness for a long time, when he or she sees the sparkle of brightness, he would be attracted to the light. And actually that light, zoom, is the ovary that he gets into. And that's in the mother's womb. Because he's being attracted by the light into there. And he must be related to this man and woman who created that sparkle. They have many, many reasons due to so much causation, unfinished affairs, unfinished business, unfinished love, unfinished debt, you name it. They must have the reason why this bottle stage sentient being zooms into that into the mom's body. They are related. There must be some reasons for it. Sometimes good reasons, sometimes bad reasons. Good and bad. It's difficult to identify it. So complicated. And that 1, 2, and 3 explains, in general terms, the past. That's what we've been doing. We life after life, we carry our karma, roll into each life, changing our form. But that alaya consciousness is unchanged. It's still rolling and rolling all the time. And that consciousness, alaya consciousness, is the polluted consciousness. That polluted consciousness contained the original consciousness. It's just polluted. That river, for example, with the pure water is polluted. But its purity is still there. It just contains a lot of pollutants. So that explains the past. 1, 2, and 3, that explain the past. That's how we got here. And let's continue with number 4. Namarupam Paccaya Sanayatanam. Dependent on the mind and body, the 6 senses arise. Then it goes further to explain the present. How do we get out? Remember when we got into the mom's body, it's just a namarupam. Namarupam. What is namarupam? Namarupam is it's just like a ball. It's just like a ball. It contains the consciousness. It contains the body, but it hasn't got the senses yet. And they call it mind and body just to give it a name. That fusion of the spermatozoa and the ovum, that fusion, that fused object contains the mind too. So we call it the mind and body. So that thing that is in the mom's body, mind and body, it stays in there. And then it slowly would develop. At the maximum 10 months. Most babies stay for 10 months, I guess, in the mom's body. Very seldom, maybe less, very seldom would it exceed 10 months. Sometimes maybe 9 months, sometimes maybe 8 months, 7 months. Maturity is different, but usually about 9 months, 8, 9, and 10. So it continues to grow. The mind and body continues to grow. How did it grow? Next. Namarupam Paccaya Salayatanam. Depending on the mind and body, the 6 senses just arise. So slowly it would grow, and after maybe 1 or 2 months, the eyes, the nose, the ears, the mouth, all the 6 senses slowly would be growing and growing, getting more and more mature in the mom's body. So the six senses arise. Salayatanam pachaya passo. Depending on the six senses, contact arises. So the body matures, the baby matures, it comes out. It comes out, it starts to have contact with the world. The baby starts to have contact with the world, and the baby will be also growing. You've gone through that process. We all have gone through that process. How come you forget about it? You've gone through it. I have been asked a lot of questions in the Q&A period. And one of the questions is like this. If there's reincarnation, how come I can't remember my past life? If I can remember my past life, I would truly believe in reincarnation. How come I can't remember it? Let me tell you, you can't even remember when you were 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old. You can't remember that period. How could you remember your past life? Can you remember what happened to you 40 years ago? Maybe. Can you remember when you were 5? No, I can't. Can you remember when you were 2 years old? What happened to you? So you can't even remember that. So how can you remember as long as previous life? You're kidding yourself. Impossible. But it does not mean that you can't remember and there is no past life. A very simple answer to a complicated question, isn't it? So, depending on the six senses, contact arises. So we came out from the mom's body and we slowly grow. 6. Passa pachaya vedana. Dependent on contact, feelings arises. So the baby is slowly growing and he has contact with the outside world, the baby. And the baby feels happy. The baby giggles, the baby laughs, smiles. When the baby is hungry, he cries. When it's painful, he cries. So he has feelings. Start to have feelings. Number 7. Vedana pachaya tanha. Dependent on feelings, craving and aversion arise. Feelings have feelings of pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feelings. The baby is craving for good feelings. He has aversion to bad feelings. So the baby loves something and hates something. So craving and aversion arise. Craving is loving something. Aversion is hating something. Hate and love slowly develop in the baby. Not a baby anymore, maybe 5 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old, even 7 years old. So he has craving and aversion. Number 8, tanha pachaya upadanam. Dependent on craving and aversion, clinging arise. Not just loving and hating, he clings on to love. And he clings on to hatred for something unpleasant. He attaches to things. Like you and me, we attach to things we love and we hate things. We want to detach from things we don't like. So the process, so it clings to it, attached to it, grabs onto it and never let go. Somebody scold you, you hate him, and that hatred, you grabs onto that hatred, you never forget about it. Some experiences. You've been abused, for example, in some childhood, some abused childhood, the child will never forget. Grasping onto it. Love will never forget. Number 9. Upadana pachaya bhavo. Dependent on clinging, the process of becoming arises. Because of this attachment, something he loves, and he wants to acquire. In the process of acquiring it, He may create karma again. The hatred, the love, the disappointment, the fear, the depression, all these mental feelings, mental afflictions, we call it clinging, we call it attachment, would continue to develop into karma. And this karma would again, through our actions, our speech, our thought, we carry out these actions creating karma, and we again, with this karma, when we get old, then we died, we roll again into the next reincarnation. The process of becoming, in other words, it creates another becoming. Here, it slowly wraps up the 12 dependent originations. So from 1, 2, and 3, it's the past. From 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, clinging, it's the present, and it rolls into the future. Depending on clinging, the process of becoming. In other words, because of this attachment, it creates another loop of reincarnation again. Because we're creating karma again. We're creating greediness, ignorance, hatred again. So we are in a loop of reincarnation. The process of becoming arises. Becoming another life, becoming another process, another cycle. Number 10 now. Bhava Pachaya Jati. Dependent on the process of becoming, birth arises. And then we roll into the next life. We get into the future mom's womb again, and then comes out again as baby. Birth again. So we just died, and we came back again. So actually death is the beginning of another life. We've been rolling like that for many, many lives. Jati Pachaya Jara, Maranam Sukha Parideva. Depending on the basis of birth, aging and death arises. In other words, just to wrap it up, we died and we given birth to, and then we're slowly going through hatred, love, craving, aversions, clinging and attachment, creating karma, and then aging comes. Everybody has aging, and then we die. Aging and death arise. Dukkha domanas upayasa sambhavanti, together with all this sorrow, lamentation, physical and mental sufferings and tribulations that we have gone through. In all this process, we've gone through a lot of mental suffering, physical suffering, lamentation, sorrow, depression, or you name them. We've gone through a lot. You and I, we've gone through a lot. Ivan metasa, kavalasa, dukkha, kandas, zamudaya hoti. That means thus arises this entire mass of suffering. In other words, now, paticca samuppada explains how in all these related events, in all this chain of causation, how do we come about to what we are now, and if we don't do anything about it, we just keep on creating karma, no spiritual practice, no liberation for us, no emancipation from our karmic cocoons, then we continue to roll like that life after life. We've been doing that all the time. Nothing to do with God. We ourselves have been doing all this. Nothing, don't blame God for it, don't praise God for it. We all did this life after life. We're rolling our alive consciousness life after life. Only when we purify our consciousness, no more karma, can we be detached from this cycle. Buddha has already detached from it. We're in the process of learning to detach from it. We're in the process of learning to get away from life and death and aging. You have a choice to go to heaven, you have a choice to go to prison. You have the choice to go down hell. But the Buddha said heaven is not the way to go. Heaven enjoys happiness. But when the happiness expires, you still have to go down this road, this reincarnation, this cycle. Again and again is unending. Some people will ask, where's the beginning? The beginning is the end is the beginning. Why do you have to trace the beginning? You're pulling your hair and want the beginning. You don't have to. You don't need to. You don't need to get a beginning. You take a cup of water from a stream. Where's the beginning of that cup of water? The rain permeates into the ground, into the gravels, and it gets to the water. The water evaporates in the cloud and gets down as rain. It goes in a cycle. You draw a circle, the circumference of the circle. The point where it starts is the point where it ends. Where's the beginning? The Buddha said, get away from this cycle. Here's the medicine. This is the teaching that will help you to get out. The 3 canons of teaching that will help you to get out. You get this medicine and you say, where does this medicine come from? How does it make of? Of chemicals? Where does chemical come from? It looks yellow. How does the color come from? Any label on the medicine? You ask all these questions. You spend all this time asking these questions, and then you died. You don't have time to practice. You haven't even taken it. This is Paticca Samuppada. We finished explaining it in one session of half an hour. We finished explaining all these. If people ask you where you come from, Paticca Samuppada. That's how we reincarnate. Everybody reincarnate. Not just this Paticca Samuppada relates not only to the human realm, it also relates to the 6 realms, to the animal realm. You look at a dog, that got dogs like us going through reincarnation. That dog could have been a king in previous life. You don't know. That dog could have been your brother and sister. You don't kill him or her for food, do you? Could be your previous wife that you love so much, or your previous daughter, or your previous brother and sister. Why do you allow that dog to be, that cow, or that pig, that chicken to be killed for food? Stay away from eating meat. Don't eat meat anymore. So this is Paticca Samuppada. Is that the end of the explanation? The end is the beginning. That's the beginning of another explanation if you turn to the next page.